What's going on, Black Baseball Mixtape family? We are in the booth once more, hanging with those who are just doing the thing when it comes to the great game of baseball. Flobo Boyce here with you, the mayor, if you could say so myself. I'm being joined by someone who does so many things. I'm just glad he has some time out of his schedule to be on the show. Please welcome Bookie Gates, the founder of Baseball Beyond Borders. What's going on, sir?
What's going on, Flobo, man? I appreciate y'all having me, man. Thank you for just creating this platform under Baseball Mixtapes, one that just allows us to talk about the game of baseball and bring some levity to the sport that we all come to love and enjoy.
Man, I gotta ask, man, how are you feeling today? I know you got like probably phone calls and emails piling up. You probably got people asking for your guidance all the time.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling great, man. I mean, this is actually we're what days away from spring training, man. So obviously, we hyping up everything about baseball, and that's what we love to do. Obviously, the boys is out there and the girls are out there playing. So that's a good thing. The weather isn't always conducive here in Seattle. That allows us to really get outside. But we were able to get outside this past Saturday, man. Played a little game. It was actually the opening of Aaron Pointer Field, which is through Metro Parks Tacoma. Aaron Pointer, if you don't know, obviously a former MLB player, played minor leagues for quite some time during the civil rights era. Aaron Pointer also was the first, or if not the last, let me take it back, the last to actually hit 400 in minor league baseball during the civil rights era. So congratulations to that black man who was able to now get his flowers, who's still living throughout the first pitch this Saturday. I got a field named after him because of the tremendous work that he does. But what people don't realize, he was also a retired NFL referee.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Oh man, so this, and obviously his children are amazing individuals. Darren Pointer and his grandchildren, Jaden Pointer, they both play for our organization. Darren coaches for us, DP man. So just you talking about community. That's the beauty about baseball, Flo. That's what I'm talking about. Like when we talk about what's beautiful about this game, it's that we build community, and there's generations that really engage within the love of baseball, right? So I'm just excited about the season kicking off.
For sure. And we do have to talk about Baseball Beyond Borders because that is a community that's growing day by day. But I want to get to be more about you. Like, who was the first person to let you into the baseball community? Were you a kid? Were you an adult? Were you a player yourself? Let us know.
Man, Flo, you told me this is supposed to be an uplifting podcast, and you telling me, you want to know like who got me into the game. Right now, I got to go back to, Big Mama.
Okay.
Rally, right? Big Mama was the one that actually got me, and my great grandmother, Rosabelle Hendricks, my grandmother as well, Ida Middlebrooks. They were the ones that got me into the game. Now, granted, my father played the game, right? He coached my older brothers. They were playing the game, so I was around the game of baseball, right? That was what I did, 365 days out of the year. People be like, how'd you do that in Seattle, right? It rains a lot. It didn't matter, right? We was on street corners. We was out there whenever we had a glimpse of sunshine or the rain decided to subdue itself for 3 minutes. We was out there with a baseball bat, a ball, doing something around the game of baseball. So it was really Big Mama, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with just she socialized, the household was socialized around baseball, right? If it was, I'm waking up and I'm watching the Atlanta Braves. Now, granted, when I say I'm watching Atlanta Braves, people's like, well, how are you watching the Atlanta Braves in Seattle? Well, TBS Network obviously was hosting Atlanta Braves. So at 4:00 every single day, we turned that channel to TBS because I knew the Atlanta Braves was there. My grandmother was born and raised in Atlanta, great grandmother from Tennessee. So, of course, there's already a connection there. But then we ended up, 7:00, the Mariners game would come on. So literally, I was watching 2 games a day. And my great grandmother, she didn't force me to watch it, but it was on the TV. And we had one TV in the household. So that's what I was watching. So they introduced me to the game, man. And I think that I always talk about being an instigator and agitator of systems, right? That's who I am. Rebellious, just excited and curious as to why things operate in the way they do. I get that from my grandmother, Ida Middlebrooks, right? When she was in Tennessee, she wanted to play baseball, but they was like, no, you got to play softball. She was like, no, I'm playing baseball. Don't try to withhold me from doing these things. So, I got that from her, and then she would take me, man, Flo, every chance she got. She was a usher. So as she started to wind down, get a little, age herself, and she would never tell me that she was aging. She always told me she was 25.
They always do that, brother.
But she worked for University of Washington, so I would always be at University of Washington football games as an usher. She also worked for the Kingdom. And so she'll Seahawk games to Mariners games, but it was the Mariners game she would always bring me to. So I would get there early. I would sit there. I would watch Rupert Jones. I would watch Alvin Davis. I would sit there and just admire Harold Reynolds, Ken Griffey Jr. So I'm sitting there just watching batting practice.
Yeah.
I'm the only little kid in there. They're engaging with me. So that got me loving the game, right? And I realized, man, as black men and as seeing other black men playing this game inspired me even more. So shout out to my great grandmother and grandmother for giving me that exposure.
No, absolutely. And you know, you touched upon the superstation system that was the time in the 70s and 80s. I mean, you talk about Dominican fans being Yankee fans, you talk about Japanese fans being Cubs fans, you talk about Hawaiians being Dodger fans, and it's kind of cool with the Atlanta Braves country. They call it Braves country. It's so wide and expansive. So, but your team though is Seattle. If you have someone had to ask you on a trivia question, are you a Seattle Mariner fan today or?
I'm a homer, right? Yeah, so I'm a homer. So I love the Seattle Mariners, right? They're obviously the hometown team. I'd never really had like a favorite. I always just followed kind of the teams that really and players, right? Players were the ones that I would always kind of watch. So I was a fan of the Atlanta Braves simply because you got Terry Pendleton, you had David Justice, right? You had you had ball players playing. I was a big fan of the Pittsburgh Pirates back in '79, right? Obviously, I wasn't. That was predating my time on existing on earth, but yet just hearing the stories and just watching, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Dave Parker was one of my favorite to
Oh,
play this game, right? Dave Henderson. So you talk about historical, right? I will go back and date, like, here's all my favorite players, but I'm gonna tell you one thing. There's nothing like watching Ken Griffey Jr.
true.
People don't understand the power in which he brings I guess the persona, right? And to be honest, the love of the game. I mean, he's a kid, right? There's a reason why they called him the kid.
Right.
And so that was the beauty of it, and just having conversations with him and getting a chance to know him. I was in a hitting video with him when I was 10 years old. He was only, I think, maybe 18, 19 coming into the league, right? At 19, 20, shooting a hitting video with young kids, man. It's like, man, and I asked him a question. I said, do you even know how to hit? You barely, you just my peer. Like, do you know how to hit? And he just laughed at me, man. So we kind of built off and got a good relationship since that video.
I can imagine like this one dude told me 30 years ago I was trash at the plate. I showed him. Nah, I hear you. It's pretty interesting how like not so much now anymore with the combining of leagues, but almost everyone growing up had their favorite team and they had a second team, whatever that was, and now AL thing or a different city. Even today, like even though the White Sox were my second team because the leagues were split, I'm always trying to see what the Athletics are doing. I'm going to make sure I support them the best way I can. But props to that, man, being able to pass it down. But let's jump ahead. So you're the founder of Baseball Beyond Borders. This is the reason why I had to hit your people up because I really want to talk about this because it's about community and how important it is to get everyone indoctrinated into the game, understanding that it's part of the American fabric. But there was a time where baseball just wasn't it for the kids. But you are on a mission to change that.
Absolutely. I think it comes from this concept we call pain, passion, and purpose, right? And this is not an educational course. We can save that for the next podcast. But the fact is that when I talk about pain, passion, and purpose, that everything to do with displacement. And I think, as an individual growing up, right, going through little leagues and having access to Garfield Playfield, having access to the Black Central District of Seattle, right? The Central District that was predominantly African-American in our community here in Seattle, that we were playing and it was happening every single day. But then once you transition out of little league, what was there, right? There was nothing really there. Or if you wanted to play at a higher level or take your game to another level, you tend to have to kind of go outside of your community to play. And that pain of being stripped away from my community wasn't necessarily because it hurt to go play. I love the game, right? So I'm just going to go play wherever I had the ability to go play. But it was my favorite fan who couldn't come to those games when I had to travel. And it was my great grandmother and grandfather. It was my grandmother. Those individuals stopped coming. And I'm thinking to myself, why aren't they coming and why aren't they attending? And is there a reason why they wouldn't just drive across the bridge? Because they had vehicles. It wasn't a transportation issue. It was just the fact that I don't think they felt the sense of belonging. Now, it could be Arrested Development. I don't know. It's hard for me to ask the question now. They have since deceased. But I think, the question that came up was, man, why wouldn't they come watch me play? And so that pain kept festering, right? And I think the bigger pain was I still had to come back home. So even though I went off and played and enjoyed my time, I came back home to Garfield Playfield and I would see my peers who were far better than me, had more talent. They weren't playing in the game, right? And then social determinants of health started to kick in. And all of a sudden now the criminal legal system started to make its way into our community. And I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
What can I do? But again, Flo, as a 14-year-old, you're like, well, you want to change the world, but you don't know how to go about changing the world.
Right.
And so you just kind of keep going, right? It's status quo. I think that's what got me curious about being an agitator. because I'm like, well, man, why does this have to be like? Why do they have to struggle while I'm out here having the time of my life, or I'm at least, pursuing my career and advancing and moving on? So that pain eventually fueled the passion for sport-based youth development, making sure that no kid gets left behind. Right now, I know that's a cliche. It's a terminology that's being used, but it's reality, right? We don't want any kid to not have access to this game and to be able to dream. Now, we know that only 6.7% of all high school athletes will advance on to the next level, right? That's a proven fact. That's a known statistic out there across America. But the fact is, you still got to give them an opportunity, because you don't know if you can be a part of that 6.7%. So that passion of sport-based youth development fueled the purpose, which is now Baseball Beyond Borders.
Well, usually I reserve this question for the back half of the interview, but I got to ask now. I mean, is baseball cool? Why or why not? What are we doing to get kids in there? Are they having a good time? Did it fall out of fashion? Is it still in fashion? Am I a boomer shaking my fist? You let me know, Bookie. Help me out.
I think it's a little bit of all of that, right? Yeah, we all tend to be boomers shaking our fists, just wondering, questioning why. But no, the game of baseball is cool, right? It may not be sexy, but I think you can give it to TLC. It's crazy and cool. I don't know about sexy, right?
What's the difference? Help me out here. What's the difference?
Well, knowing the appeal, it has everything to do with the appeal. I think the game of baseball is cool because it's a thinking man's game, right? I mean, you have to, and I think we know the culture oftentimes don't want nerds, right? Nerds aren't always the coolest part of society, but yet they tend to be the one that have the greatest sustainability and the longevity when it comes to financially. They tend to set themselves up. And so I think the game of baseball, being a thinking man's game, being that, I'll say a thinking person's game, because I want to be inclusive of our fast pitch and softball community. It's a thinking person's game, right? Both baseball and softball synonymously. And so having that element of it, that's the coolness, right? It forces you to think. It forces you to be prepared. It forces you to be proactive in what you do. It also puts you on a pedestal, right, as an individual, because baseball is an individual sport in a team setting, because it's you getting up to that plate, you being able to, execute and do what you have to do to move that run over to second base, or to drive that run home, to do the things, right? And if you don't do it, guess what? You get another opportunity, man. And I think what we don't realize is that baseball is the only game you can have success when you fail. And we don't, and I think failure is something that we don't glorify, but yet it's a motivation. So we never glorify failure, but yet we use it as motivation. So you're kind of as oxymoron, right? In that sense of, how do you say Kobe Bryant made so many shots, took so many shots, but never really made many of them? Well, Michael Jordan, same way, right? We talk about how it's about putting up as many shots as you can. Well, that's failure. But then in the game of baseball, if I only succeed 3 out of the 10 times at my bat, I'm a Hall of Famer in a sense, right? I'm an all-star, maybe not a Hall of Famer, but I'm an all-star. And if I do that consistently over 10 to 15 years, now I get that nod into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean, so we have to begin to normalize. And I think that's the coolness about it. Once we can begin to normalize the game of baseball in a way that really embraces failure as a vehicle for success, man, you'll see the world change, because now more people they'll be able to know how to cope with failure, and they'll find other ways when told no. They'll find other ways when the backs are against the wall, or when they aren't having the success that they need, to then change course and find the success that they need.
I gotta switch hats a little bit here, because like on the personal side, I got a podcast called New Amsterdam Radio where I sit with entrepreneurs and talk about the process. So I gotta ask you this question, just like maybe a curiosity for me. You had the idea for Baseball Beyond Board, and it's obviously thriving now, but there had to been some kind of trepidation getting people on board, the launch, the waiting for people to understand what's about and to buy in. What was that process like? Who is on your advisory team? Was it kind of just you praying and hopefully it'll pop off? Like, what was that whole process like?
Well, it did start with prayer. I mean, ultimately, it started there, and then from there, obviously, that prayer actually identified, 8 board members, right? 8 individuals that I knew could lead this effort. But I really didn't want teams, right? I didn't think that we were going to do, a team concept. It was really about providing kind of training. And then we ended up looking at a academic model called Moving Beyond 12, which we're still kind of formulating and developing, that really looks at the 9 innings of baseball, right? So again, trying to socialize the game. But it was those 8 board members. It was individuals in the community at University of Washington that actually helped out and opened the door. Jen Cohen being one of them, who is now at the University of Southern California as athletic director. This was prior to her taking the AD role. She was influential in being able to give us access to University of Washington so that these kids had the ability to see themselves on a Division I field. Even though we weren't looking to play any games, we were just training, and we did it every Sunday. And I think, from there, it was really about just the community stepping up and believing in the vision. Now, it did take a year or two to really catch on to the vision. It did take the ability to lose games. And the reason why we started teams is because after that last training that we had, last training session back in 2008, we were sitting there talking to the kids saying, hey, we look forward to watching you. We want to come to your high school games. We want to just support you. Most of those kids, it was about 45 of them, looked at us and said, I don't have a place to play. And that baffled me, right? So I'm like, well, what do you mean you don't have a place to play? You're in high school. High schools have teams, and most of y'all went to these schools that I know of. You also are in little leagues. I know there's little leagues that exist, right? We probably think the state of Washington might have the most little league programs within a square mile, right? I mean, it's just because we have so many districts that come into play. And I had to ask the question. It's like, well, what do you mean? And of course, their concept was, well, there's already kids that are better than me. There's already, a team has already been formed at the high school level because they're already playing select ball. So the politics of the game started to trickle down into a lot of these kids. And I just said, well, you know what? Let's make this happen. We know that there's a gap between 13 and 15. So we started. I went out there and just had to make some phone calls, prayed to a few people, or prayed and then asked a few people to help. Really support us, because it was already in January, February. Like these leagues, as far as like Sandy Koufax leagues and Babe Ruth leagues, they already had their schedules formulated, but they was able to fit us in. We were able to actually get started, and then we just kind of went from there. But I'm telling you, we took it on the shorts, man. We was getting the back pockets kicked off of us, going out there playing, because a lot of these kids just didn't understand the game itself, right, and knowing how to navigate the failure.
Right.
And so we had to, I told parents, because parents was like, we want to win, it was all about winning. And I'm like, well, look at the trajectory of the season, right? Let's look at each individual game and look at don't look at the outcome, but focus on results. And the results are, how better was your kid getting, right? With their confidence, right? They were putting the ball in play. They weren't striking out as much, right? So we had to look at all these variables, and we started getting to the metrics of the game. And so it really took an educational approach in order to really bring sustainability within the ecosystem of Baseball Beyond Borders, because that's when families just didn't really understand, like, winning was everything. And of course, when you're competing with somebody, we're playing on a select travel ball circuit, because that's all that was there for us, right? After you get out of 13, Little League is somewhat obsolete here in our region. So you tend to just jump right into the mix of travel ball. And so at that point, you're playing against teams that are, $5,000-$6,000 a year. And we're only charging, $200 for you to come and participate. But that didn't mean that you weren't better, right? It was just a matter of we couldn't play a full 7 innings, right? We get to 5, and then we didn't have enough pitching stamina, or, kids just, their confidence got deflated, right? They weren't feeling the level of it. So it just took that amount of time. And I think it was really about continuously sharing the vision and not giving up, right? Again, it goes back to the concept of baseball is the only game you can fail and have success. So our failures within those first 3 to 4 years started to build on the success that we have today.
Yeah, you hit something that a lot of guests don't about not so much the kids, but the parents. I know you can't guarantee victories. I think most parents understand that cognitively, but the price of playing baseball or lacrosse or hockey, those are ones that usually cited as more expensive ones, and your team doesn't win, can be very frustrating for an adult who's maybe playing for private school or dentures, or not dentures, braces or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, it could be a strain on a family thing. But even before that, outside of that, do you think that baseball is doing enough to get kids even interested at the Little League level to come in, especially players of color?
I think so. I think we're getting there, right? I can't say that we're there at a point where we can see the trickle down effect from Major League Baseball on into Little Leagues. But I think, what we're starting to find is that there's a level of interdependence that's now required within the game of baseball, because we all believe we could do it on our own. I think we all thought that there's levels to this, Flo, man. And when I say levels to it, it's about really how we look at the continuum of care. And I think that is an area that Baseball Beyond Borders focus on, meaning that we know we have to introduce some kids to the game of baseball at the very onset, right? This may be their first time ever picking up a glove or a bat, and they want to engage in the game. That means that we have to open up that door for them and that opportunity. But at the same time, the organization also have to make sure that kids who are dreaming about playing in Major League Baseball and wants to play at an elite level also is equipped with the knowledge, skill, and ability to do such that. And so I think now we're realizing that our work even can't be done alone. We have to be a little more interdependent upon little leagues and working very closely with them and ensuring that, one, they have the capacity, meaning that their coaches are equipped and prepared to teach the game. That doesn't mean they have to give them everything, right? I think, but enough opportunities to learn how to play the game at the highest level, or at least what it may take to play the game at the highest level, and doing the things the right way and just making sure the fundamentals are in place. And then from there, just building. And I think what we have to do is create more pathways. And that's something that we're really building upon, not only just looking at little league seasons, but extending little league to a degree of, fall ball programs, and making sure that little leagues have those to keep, to build and equip those kids. And then eventually you'll start to see a stronger pipeline in place. And then obviously what Major League Baseball is doing on their baseball and softball development side, this, I think 2 weeks ago, it was the first time MLB ID tour, the identification tour, came to the Northwest. And I'll tell you this, they liked what they seen. And so my question to them was, what took you so long? We've been sitting here waiting.
Yeah.
So it's 6 years in the making, right? We finally got MLB ID tour. So now they're starting to see that there's pockets, man. And there's black kids who really love this game and want to play this game. They just need to be seen.
All right. So I got to ask a question before I even get to my next question. How do you fill the cup, man? So you up, you go, you give. Like, how do you recharge the battery to do it again the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year?
I think, I always talk about this, and I talk to my wife about it, man. My third space, right? I find a third space, and my third space is a baseball field, or an indoor facility, or something that allows me to go there. Because what it realizes that even though my day might be filled with, I run a business on the side, transportation logistics company. Obviously my hands are dabbling in other things, right? Because I'm about community. I'm just wanting to see our community succeed. It is, regardless of how that day may go, I'm able to release myself when I get onto the field, right? Because it's a game that I love so much, and I know that it's going to challenge me at the same time. So it forces me to think critically. And that process in which I take on the field to think critically, I use that also to think about those things that kind of got me in my day, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that may be, right? The joys of life, the lows of life, all those things. I think I count it all joy. But baseball in that space of the field and/or the indoor facility allows me to really think and to be around kids who also dream. And I think that's the one thing that I think because I'm a visionary. And so being a visionary, right, being able to see kids, I want to also make sure that they can see a vision in themselves, to whether it's playing in this game or being a part of the game. And that's really why our mission statement is really about connecting student athletes' passions to their academic future. We know you're not going to be a baseball player, right? Full time, like your career or longevity, right? You're not going to be playing this game until you're 70, 80 years of age, but you can still be around it. And you can still be employed by it, right? So not only are you going to be employed on the field for those first 10 to 15 years, which is typically the average that a Major League Baseball player is playing in the league, but outside of that, you have the ability to also still be employed, whether that be working within a franchise, or it could be consulting for a franchise, or is working in adjacent to a baseball or softball institution. So those are things that I think really motivate and energize me, and that keeps me going. And I do it, man, because I know what great grandmother Rosabelle and what grandma Ida, what they instilled in me, what my father instilled in me, and giving me the gifts of talent and play. And then my mother worked at Garfield High School, the school that I attended, right? And everybody knows about Garfield High School, the greatest high school west of the Mississippi.
Right.
But Garfield High School, right, produced champions. And it has very little to do with, what accomplishments we had on the field, right? Because obviously baseball, we didn't really have the success in the baseball field, but basketball, you hear a lot about that. The Brandon Roys of the world, right? You got the Bill Ellerbys who played at UCal Berkeley and went on to play. But my mother worked there for 32 years when she retired, and she gave me the gift of community, because wherever I go, regardless of where I enter into the space, anybody that sees me asks, "How's your mother doing?" She helped me get through my high school experience.
Yeah.
So
That's fantastic, man. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Shout out to Garfield, especially. So Pacific Northwest had a rich career in baseball, but in a lot of ways, the 2023 All-Star Game felt like a coming out party. I know you were out there. I mean, what was that whole thing like from your perspective on the ground? I saw the pictures, you and Ken Griffey high-fiving each other. I was kind of jealous, brother.
Yeah, no, it was dope, man. I mean, you talking about because again, last time we had the All-Star game was 2021. So 20 years in the making. Or 2001, I'm sorry. 2001 was the last time we had an All-Star game. History in the making, right? You know, this is something that we were waiting and waiting and waiting to make this thing happen. And of course, here we are, right, with 2023 hosting the All-Star game. It was a beautiful thing. I think what we loved most about it was the HBCU Swingman Classic. You know,
Yeah.
that right there alone really set the stage, right? And I think being a part of the planning process and bringing the community together to kind of execute the first ever, the inaugural, Swingman Classic, I think said everything about how this city really embraces new opportunities, but also importantly, how we really want to see Black baseball really be enriched in the lives of our youth in this greater Pacific Northwest community.
Speaking of, let's talk about the Seattle series, March 14th through 16th. Talk to me about that one. It's kind of the extension, the spiritual successor of that. And what do you plan to do? What do you plan to achieve goal-wise coming next month?
It is. So for those that don't know, the HBCU Seattle series is something that Baseball Band Borders have kind of birthed on the onset of, on the heels, I'll say, of the Swingman Classic that took place in 2023. Obviously, when we were sitting in there and we saw 10,000 African American families show up to the Swingman Classic and be present, the next thing I did was I looked at Seattle Mariners brass and I said, how do we make this happen every year? Right? What can we do? But also, how do we continue to fill these seats within these 81 games that we play to make sure that, Black babies and Black mothers and Black fathers, they also feel a sense of belonging and welcoming within this facility, right? I mean, T-Mobile Park is a beautiful stadium, right? And it was a stadium that Griffey really built, right? It was that time that, when you talk about Seattle Mariners baseball, they're going to hear about how Griffey saved it, right? I mean, that's a part of the narrative related to that year when obviously we had to get a new facility, right? The Kingdom was just outdated. We needed something new. And with that came, some newness. And so I think this HBCU Seattle series is really about building and continuously building that pipeline. So this year we got Coppin State University that will be coming up March 14th through the 16th to play a 3-game series against Seattle University. It's going to be kicked off with a Vibe Bingo experience. So we're really bringing the Black culture through Five Bingo and embracing community to talk about baseball and socialize the game. And then eventually we're looking to expand on this. So for years to come, we really want to create kind of a replicate of the Andre Dawson Classic and or the Cactus Jack Invitational, and making sure that we can get 4 to 6 HBCU programs here in the Northwest in the month of March to play as part of the HBCU Seattle series at T-Mobile Park.
I had the pleasure of I want to do all 30 baseball parks at one point. I got 24 now. I visited T-Mobile in April of 2023. It was a lot of fun. Of course, it rained all the time because it's April in Seattle, right?
Yes.
Yeah, tourists, get over it. But I will say this, first time I'm actually sharing this, what I really liked about T-Mobile and why that experience sticks with me, and it's the reason as a Mets fan, my profile picture on Facebook is me at that park it was really the only place I have seen. I've only been in 24 major leagues. I haven't been in all of them, where I saw multiple groups of Black women just out, like having a girls' night out. Like, let's go to the ballpark. Like, it's a Thursday night. Let's do a thing. I go, wow, the community felt natural and organic. Some teams, unfortunately, based on their demographics, felt like they had to have a Black night. But I didn't feel that at all in Seattle. The community really loves their team back to front.
100%. Like, I mean, and that's what you see. And so we want to continue to build upon that. And I think the Mariners have done a pretty interesting job in promoting and marketing to that demographic. Obviously, yes, they still have the National African American Heritage Night, which we're actually now combining with an HBCU night, or at least I say we are combining it. Obviously, this is the things that we're advocating for. And we're talking about, an HBCU or African American night that includes HBCU and how we can elevate that. Because obviously we have a very strong pipeline academically of Seattle-born residents, or those that graduate out of high school, transition over into HBCU schools, and then come back. We're also seeing a huge influx of folks migrating into Seattle from HBCUs now because of the tech market. Yeah. And we got to make sure that we can explore that. And I think even for those families that are coming and those individuals transitioning here to the Northwest from the South or from the East Coast, they already kind of have an embedded rich history of baseball. So how do we now build upon that? And I think T-Mobile Park is one of the greatest institutions that or facilities, right? I mean, it's a beautiful facility. itself, right? Proximity to the sound, meaning the Puget Sound, the water. So if you go up on that third level and you go behind home plate and you look, and you see a beautiful setting of the Olympic Mountains. Not to mention now, you think about what's happening across the street, right, with Victory Hall and Steelhead Alley. Steelhead Alley obviously is given an ode. Hatback Bar and Grill, Steelhead Alley, and the Victory Hall, but Steelhead Alley is given an ode to Negro League baseball, right? And the history of African Americans in Seattle that played baseball dates back to when they had the Seattle Owls, right? A softball team, all women softball team of Black women, to even the first West Coast Negro League team in the Seattle Steelheads being present. So it's a beautiful sight. If you get to Seattle, make sure you go to Steelhead Alley so you can grab you some rockfish or a Metier Brewing, a Black-owned brewery. They have the Double Play Brewer. They also have this coconut porter that I'm a big fan of. So shout out to Rodney Hines for even having the vision to put this together. So there's a lot of things that are happening down in that area that I think you'll really enjoy. That's actually kind of embracing the Black community.
Okay, so I actually came across this very recently. I'm so glad you mentioned this about the Seattle Owls, and it was an all black women's softball team. There's some pictures around on the internet, and they had some entries in the museum. But that was something I didn't know, and I understand that a lot of Negro League history, a lot of Black history in baseball tends to be scattered. That's being very, very cautious with my words, but that was something that was really much institution in Seattle, that Black girls can just play softball under the Owls banner.
Absolutely. And they were, a really good team from what I hear, right? I don't have all the knowledge and history about it, but I continue to hear that when you talk about who was one of the best baseball programs, when you say that, I said it, who was one of the best baseball programs in the Northwest, everybody points to Seattle Owls, even though they're a fast pitch team. And we look at baseball and softball synonymously. So when I say that, so I think that goes to show the ode to what those ladies was able to do to pave the way and still be present, right? And to be a part of community. I said volumes, and I think they obviously connected with the Seattle Steelheads, which, what I didn't know is that one of the part owners of the Seattle Steelheads was Jesse Owens himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So obviously, that West Coast Negro League baseball, I think also has a rich history that we often don't get the chance to, speak to or understand the impetus or the impact that it even had for baseball here in the Northwest.
I gotta ask you, man, when you're at T-Mobile Park, where do you sit and what food do you get if you do happen to purchase stuff inside the park?
Yeah, typically, man, I'm usually sitting behind home plate or somewhere along that first base line, which is the Mariners dugout, somewhere in close proximity when I do get to the park. But when I do go there, man, I'm always going to get, I'm not getting those grasshoppers, bro. So hopefully, as I was asking if I eat the grasshoppers. No, I do not eat the grasshoppers, but Kid Valley. So you got the Kid Valley garlic fries, you always a win. You can't miss those. But then there's a crab sandwich. I forgot the name of the spot, but there's this crab sandwich. It's in center field, first level, right there, close to beer garden. To die for, man. Never misses.
Wait, what's wrong? What's wrong with grasshoppers? What's going on?
I'm not feeling it. Like, I'm not just gonna go and be like, yo, let me get a pound of them grasshoppers. Like, just like they're sunflower seeds. Like, I'm not. Give me a bag of sunflower seeds. I'm okay. Right, sunflower seeds. I'm fine. But not no grasshoppers. People say they like them.
You drew a line. I just figured if something was up. I didn't know.
Yeah, but I thought you were going to inquire because when you say about the food choices, now of course I remember you talking about Din Tai Fung.
Yeah,
fire. Like,
that blew my mind. It's inside our ballpark. Not to say ballparks didn't have good food, but for a long time it didn't. Yeah. Din Tai Fung is the opposite of that. You know what I'm saying?
Din Tai Fung is it, man. Charlie's cheesesteaks, man. I got a partner that runs a stop. So I mean, again, you can't miss on a lot of these things, but I would say definitely go get the crab sandwich.
I will say that I was a hot dog snob growing up because I'm from Brooklyn and we got Nathan's, right? And not every park has Nathan's. So when I go to a ballpark, I used to get burgers. But then you go to enough ballparks, you're like, man, that burger's like 20 and them hot dogs like 6. And so I've eaten more hot dogs in the last 18 months than before. But I would definitely check out some of your options next time I head up.
Try the Hemplers. Yeah, try the Hemplers Polish sausage too. That's I think Hemplers are the local brand. But there's Polish sausages is solid.
That's what's up, man. This is in the booth of Flobo Boyce hanging out with Bookie Gates. And right now, I want to say, man, thanks very much for taking time out just to talk to you about Baseball Beyond Borders and everything you're working on. Here's the fun part, though. If someone want to connect with you, learn more about your program, learn more about MB12, how to go about doing that.
Yeah, so they can reach out. We got our website, baseballbeyond.org. You can also visit us on social media platforms at Baseball Beyond Borders, all together. And so, that's the beauty. You'll find everything about the HBCU Seattle Classic, or Seattle Series, I should say, there. More information on, if you're interested in participating, you're in the Northwest, you want to learn more about the work that we do, you have the ability to contact us and get out there. We would love to see you at a ballpark, man. That's what we, meet us at the field. That's what we tell them. Like, don't just hit us up on email. Don't hit us up on social media. Meet us at the field. Come see the work that these kids are putting in to really explore their dreams and passions for the game of baseball. That's ultimately going to lead them to their academic future.
Man, appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Flobo.